Welcome to Dream Business Radio, the place to create your dream business now. Get ready for some inspiration, some encouragement, some proven business building strategies, and a couple of new ideas
that you haven't even thought of.
It's time to leave slow and steady as she goes to the other entrepreneurs, because this program is all about speed and fast results. And now, broadcasting from his floating home somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, the dream business coach himself, Jim Palmer.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach, with another fantastic interview. My guest today is Rich Milliman, and he is the CEO of Extra Duty Solutions. It's a service that helps law enforcement agencies administer their extra duty programs. Rich's professional background focuses on business services and operations, and after serving as a management consultant for McKinsey & Company, Rich ran portfolio marketing and operations at Bank One's credit card unit. He then ran several emerging and mid-sized business services firms for a European family office, and prior to co-founding Extra Duty Solutions about 3 years ago, he played an active role in operational risk, security, and back office operations at the world's largest hedge fund. Rich, how you doing today?
Very good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I think my interviews are usually about 3 to 4 weeks behind. So as you and I are doing this, we're right in the middle of our lockdown with the whole Corona thing. But it's interesting. I usually do about 2 or 3 interviews a week, and I think I've got 6 on my calendar. Everybody's trying to, well, as long as I'm home, let's get all the interviews
everybody's
done.
working from home. Everybody has plenty of time in their hands now.
I'm gonna have Dream Business Radio episodes till Christmas if I keep up this pace, which will be good. So, man, I mean, McKinsey & Company, that's no small little consulting company.
Oh, they're big, yeah.
Yeah. So just curious, I'm always interested when I talk to entrepreneurs, are you first generation? Did you have parents or grandparents to kind of look after you or model you that you want to model after, or what?
No, well, actually, if you think about it as a second generation, my mother's father, my grandfather, started a business that was very successful, and my father actually worked for him in that business. So there was, I guess, a little bit of entrepreneurship in the family, although I can't say it had a major influence on me, especially earlier in my career.
Did you go to, I assume you went to university or college, or?
Yeah, I went to, I have an undergrad degree from Syracuse and a graduate degree from University of Chicago. So I did that stuff and then started my career after that. So I was in my, mid-20s when I started. Wow.
So I was super impressed. We talked a little bit in the green room that, your company is like 3 years old. You're already doing extremely well. Did you see this void in the marketplace for Extra Duty Solutions? And I guess we ought to tell people what Extra Duty Solutions is. So maybe start there.
So I'll start with what is extra duty or off duty, sometimes called secondary employment. This is essentially where police officers or sheriff's deputies work for corporations or private concerns in their off hours. So for example, if you go to a movie theater on a Saturday night and you see an officer in the lobby in uniform or in a cruiser out front, or the same if you go to a hospital or road construction where there's 2 cruisers directing traffic, that's usually extra duty, and those officers typically are not considered to be on duty at that time, although they could pounce into on duty if need be at any time. But typically they are being paid by those concerns.
Okay.
For example, movie theater, hospital. And we administer those programs for police departments and sheriff's offices.
I used to be a huge fan of the show NYPD Blue. I think before that Hill Street Blue, so I'm like cop shows. And I just remember that there's a couple scenes, I'm sure it's fictional TV, but they used to not like cops to have extra duty jobs, or maybe they were a bouncer in a bar. Maybe that's the one exception. But is it so police departments in general are okay having the cops be able to wear their uniform off duty?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of differs by department and area of the country, but for the most part, it's viewed as a favorable thing because, one, it gets more officers out there. So
right.
If there is, an officer working an extra duty detail at a Waffle House, and across the street there's an armed robbery in progress, you have an officer that can just leave that detail and go across the street and diffuse the situation. So you have more officers out there. And second, for law-abiding citizens, a lot of times this is your opportunity to engage with law enforcement in a kind of a law enforcement way, and just saying hi to an officer in a Walmart or something like that. And it's an opportunity for the officers to get some extra money. The pay is not extremely high in law enforcement, so there are benefits to cut around the horn on it. There's downside too, but most departments have these types of programs.
So your background in business services and operations, I mean, this seemed like a natural business for you to run and start. But I go back to my original question. Did you see a need for this, or how is it working before? Is everybody trying to get their own paycheck, and now you just kind of simplified the process?
Yeah, well, let's go to the need. So when I was at the hedge fund, I have a partner in his business. He was the head of physical security there, and he and I would work, and I was more on the risk side of the business, but he and I would work kind of together here and there. And when we both left, we realized, wow, this extra duty world was kind of a mess. If you're the chief security officer at Walmart, for example, and you want officers in 300 Walmarts around the country, you have to call 300 police departments. So we originally thought, well, why don't we start a company that helps the Walmarts of the world, and they just call us and we deal with it. And so that's what we did. So in 2015, we were working for Aon, Ryder, MasterCard, Marriott, Westin's, all these big spread out corporations. And in doing that, we realized, well, the pain and suffering is not just on the corporate side, it's on the law enforcement side too, because a lot of these agencies are running, in a sense, kind of security firms, out of the agency, because there's a lot of demand for this type of work. So we talked to a bunch of police chiefs and sheriffs, and they said, yeah, it's really a pain. I got a lieutenant that does nothing but answer the phones from these the customers. We've got we got to send out invoices, we got to collect on this stuff. So we set up infrastructure that would help the law enforcement agencies, and we started serving law enforcement agencies in early 2016. And then we exited that corporate market because we didn't want to have a conflict of interest. We only want to be on one side of that fence.
Right.
But there's a real demand for it. There's a lot of agencies out there who have these programs, want to have these programs, but the administrative burden and the financial risks make it unattractive to them. So we kind of fill that gap.
How does it work with insurance? So like workers' comp, or I don't know what other insurance? Does your company provide that, or are they covered some other way?
So there's two types of insurance generally. There's liability, and then there's like the workers' comp. So excuse me, the liability, we cover all the officers under our liability. I mean, they're also covered under municipal liability. It doesn't matter if we pay the officers directly as contractors to us, or if we pay the municipality or the county, and then they pay the officers. Either way, they're covered under our insurance. And then for workers' comp, if we pay the officers directly as contractors to us, we can also cover them under our workers' comp. It's every situation is unique and different. So some cities and counties, the way their workers' comp works, the officers are covered no matter what. So then they don't need to get ours. If that's not the case though, and they want workers' comp, we can cover them under ours. So it just every situation, we work with the municipality to say what works best for you guys, but they're always covered. Yeah.
Wow. One of the things I think challenges a lot of entrepreneurs, especially from startup and, when they get into growth, is really thinking outside the box from growth. When I started in 2001, I was doing newsletters for companies probably within 10 miles of my home office. In 2006, I discovered the internet, and I've had customers in 9 different countries. So for you, it's like, did you start locally, or did you just start a national business and grow from there?
We started national. I mean, our first client was in Florida, our second was in Massachusetts, third was in North Carolina, fourth was the state of Washington. So we're in 16 different states right now, and that number keeps going up every couple months. So we're headquartered in Connecticut, and our first client in Connecticut was like our 75th agency or something like that.
Wow.
So it's kind of like the people in New York City who live there their whole life and never see the Statue of Liberty, right? So
yeah.
We started on a national basis right off the bat.
Is it a double-edged sword? I'm wondering about what your biggest problem is, finding new customers, or how do you get the police officers? I mean, do you have how do you find the officers to join your program, and then is there a need for them? Like what comes first?
So we work for the municipality, right? So we sign a contract with the city or the county to administer the program, and there the officers are, right? So it's not like we're taking officers from county 1 and having them work in county 2 or something like that. If we work for, a particular city, it's their officers, and the jobs are divvied up in the way that police department wants them divvied up. We use all their rules and so on. So it's not like we're out there looking for officers. We use, each municipality's officers.
Oh, I see. So yeah. I'm sorry. So the actual the need, your customer is the municipality.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they want to keep their officers. If for the officers who want to do extra work beyond their shifts and what they want this for their officers. So it's not like the officer saying, "Hey, I need some extra money."
Right.
Oh,
usually there's a demand. Usually, the way these programs typically start is local businesses are calling the police department or the sheriff's office and saying, "Hey, can you send a couple of guys over on Saturday night? We have we want some type of security, or a hospital saying we'd like officers here during the day when it gets busy." And that's usually how these programs start. And what happens in a lot of agencies is they grow bit by bit, more and more, and before you know it, you've got this kind of big administrative burden on your hands. You have 2 officers that do nothing to deal with it. You've got bad debts. You got your floating money, and you didn't plan for this. This is not what you do in law enforcement. So we kind of try to alleviate that pain for them.
What are some of the challenges that you faced in the last 3 years? Because you've really had kind of a rocket ship ride of growth. What are some of your own internal challenges that you've faced as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So one really is, even though we've had high growth, is explaining what we do to law enforcement agencies. So on the sales side, believe it or not, that was a challenge, because it's not like there was somebody before us. We were kind of the first ones into the market, so we can't point to somebody else and say we're like them, only a little bit different. So it's not like an airline. You can point to Delta and United and say we're like them, but we have different planes and different routes, but you know what we do basically. So you had to kind of explain it in a way that was in a short way. You could explain what you do and make it appealing. So the sales process itself was difficult. In addition to that, we're not just selling to the police chief or the sheriff. Oftentimes, the CFO or the business administrator or the mayor, has to get involved, because the finance side is handled on the city side, not within the police department and so on. So there's a multifaceted sales process that we have to go through. So that was really probably the biggest challenge. And then beyond that, you have the typical challenge any high growth company is going to have. We were hiring a lot of people, and we have to get the processes in place. And if you have that gap between your sales and your infrastructure get too big, things start to fall apart. So we had to make sure we were investing in the right infrastructure as we were growing, but not over investing.
Did you have proprietary software? Or did you get something and adapt it to your business? How does your business run?
Kind of both. Back in 2015, we realized we would need very robust, flexible scheduling software. And scheduling in the world of first responders is very unique. You can't just get a scheduling software off the rack. So
right.
We looked at a bunch of providers in the law enforcement agents, first responder world, and also in the hospital world, because the scheduling in hospital world is very, very complex. So we had another firm kind of do due diligence with us, and we settled on a scheduling firm, a software firm in Texas called Jivasoft, and they had really world-class scheduling software for first responders. So we had formed a partnership with them. And then last year in 2019, we acquired them. So we're now one company, which has another great benefit, because we can now offer on-duty scheduling software in addition to our service, and have a kind of a full package for the law enforcement agency.
You actually acquired the software firm that you originally hired to set up your program.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
They wanted, it was a real benefit, and we never thought that we'd grow that fast, that it would come to. Let's just acquire them in 3 years, but that's what happened. So it worked out really, really well for both of us.
Wow. I'm just imagining, and I hope this isn't too intrusive. I'm imagining, because, when you have the officers, et cetera, on one side of the coin, they want to be paid
Yeah.
in a timely manner, but then you're probably billing counties, townships, and everything who probably will net 30, maybe net 60 or whatever. Is that a challenge? I mean, on a scale this
so
big?
we're billing the companies, right? So we're billing Walmart and Verizon and
Okay.
theaters, right? So who hire the officers, but your challenge is there. I mean, utility companies can be slow to pay. And, sometimes a school, there's a lot of officers at schools, and sometimes the school just shut down in the summer. So you send them an invoice in May and it comes back in September. So there is that. I mean, we have the ability to require prepayment or escrows for anybody who's not credit worthy. So we keep control of it, in that way. But so far we haven't had a bad debts problem. It's been really, really low.
Well, knock wood. That's good, because
Yeah.
that could, with the numbers you're doing, that could be really painful if one or two vendors or customers took that on. But curious how you're marketing your business. So you grew pretty fast. I guess you're like 60 departments across the country in 3 years. How did you initially get the word out, and how is Extra Duty Solutions getting the word out now?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was, this sort of grunt force. It was, before we even had an office, me and my partner hanging out in Starbucks, emailing police chiefs and so on, and just trying to get, 1 or 2 out of 100 that we reach out to response, we can get on the phone with them. So it was a lot of months and months of grunt work and will this work and not getting through, all that stuff. Now that we're more known, we get some incoming calls because this chief tells another chief that's in a neighboring town about us, and they're interested. And there's a lot of conferences for law enforcement that have vendors, and we can go there and we can exhibit. We give speeches in different places. So now it's a little bit more less grunt work and more usual stuff.
Right. So I wonder, how could somebody use what you're doing in the law enforcement and think about it in their business? Like, I'm always curious about, what was that thought process that said, you know what, there's a need there, I can do that better. Was there a light bulb moment for you, or what was the
it wasn't sort of a light bulb, I would say, but basically, my partner and I both left the hedge fund, and we were doing different things that neither one of us was really engaged with, and we had several conversations about, well, if we were going to start a firm, what would we do? And we thought about this sounds bad, millions of people do that. And then we said, I forget which one of us said it, but we used to hire extra duty officers back at the hedge fund for, the Christmas party or, things like that. And we said that's a painful process to do that. It's painful for everybody involved in that, and there's probably a way to make that more streamlined and more efficient. That would benefit the municipalities, benefit the officers, benefit the customers. And, we didn't have the whole thing mapped out in our heads at first. We kind of did it one step at a time. Like I said, we even started in a different industry, really on the corporate side of what we do, working directly for the corporations. And then we migrated to work for the police departments. And it was kind of, when I think about what we do now versus what we did for our first client 3.5 years ago, it's a world of difference. It's way more efficient now and all that, but that comes over time. You build your infrastructure as you have to keep up with your sales.
Yeah. What are some of the ethical issues of extra duty programs?
There's issues around how many hours, kind of like airline pilots, right? How many hours do you want an airline
and truck
pilot?
drivers, right?
Drivers, anything, and policing is no different. So a lot of agencies will have rules like you can't work more than X hours in a 24-hour period or in a week. You can't, go right from a extra duty detail to on duty without having a rest period. There's all sorts of different but similar overlapping rules that different agencies have in place to keep kind of guardrails around it. And we employ whatever rules, they have. And, we also, we'll try to help out as need be. We sometimes will get calls from banks saying the bank wants to verify income on the extra duty on top of the on-duty income because somebody's trying to buy a fancy car or something like that. We'll call the officer and say, what are you doing? The extra duty stuff is voluntary, and if that bridge project ends, it's going to get cut in half. So we try to be helpful too in that regard.
So they would, if that officer was listing, he would actually list Extra Duty Solutions as another employer.
if we're or just as a source of income that we're,
I see.
Yeah, exactly. And then these are completely voluntary programs. The officers do not need to work, do not have to work extra duty. It's completely voluntary. Now, having said that, probably 98% of all details get filled because there is enough of an interest from the law enforcement community to work these types of details. But you just need to keep your head screwed on straight about it. So,
because sadly they don't get paid enough for what they do. That's for sure. Yeah,
I mean it's the case with people on the front lines over there. Teachers, ambulance drivers. Unfortunately, that's how it's shut down in our economy. But so this is helpful for them.
So just curious, Rich, and I really appreciate your time today. Looking down the road, once we get past this crazy situation we're in, do you just see continued growth? Do you see any exponential growth opportunities? Is there a next big thing? And that's probably, if there is, you probably don't want to tell me, but just thinking right. What's the next 12 to 24 months look like for Extra Duty Solutions?
Yeah, no, I think we'll continue to grow. Luckily we now have infrastructure in place that's scalable. So as we grow, it's just a matter of adding the right number of modules and people and so on to keep up with that growth. So we've got the big thinking and the big stuff out of the way, and we've got everything down pat. We have 4 operation centers that are all connected with a bunch of disaster preparedness and recovery and so on. This Corona thing and moving to working from home or social distancing within an office was not a big monkey wrench for us. So I think now that we've got our infrastructure very down pat, I think, it's just a matter of focusing on sales and continuing to grow. I don't see us venturing into other industries or something like that. There's enough to do here, and we're young enough that I don't want to sort of throw confusion into the mix. So I think it's just a steady course at this point.
Well, good for you. I don't know many entrepreneurs who don't have a little bit of shiny object syndrome. It doesn't sound like you have it too bad.
No, I do, but I know I have it. That's the difference. Yeah. A lot of people have it and don't know they have it. That's the problem.
Yeah. 12 years ago, I had 6 different internet companies. I had started my mastermind, all these different things. I got into this kind of a mastermind out in California, and there's a guy super successful. And so I was up there saying, this is what I'm doing. And then I said, these are 3 new programs I want to bring online. This guy leaned back in his chair, he crossed his arms and goes, you know what, Jim? I thought, here comes some great wisdom. Soak it in, Jim. He goes, if you'd focus half as much time marketing what you've already built as creating something new, you'd be so much farther ahead. I mean, it was an embarrassing moment, but it was like a huge moment for me because honestly, Rich, since that, I've created nothing new since, 10 years ago or 8 years.
I think, one time, a long time ago, I had an interview it was a Fortune 500 company, probably Fortune 100, and I was interviewing with the head of strategic planning, who the year later became the CEO of the whole thing. So this is kind of what I call a real guy, right? And I'm sitting there interviewing, and he said, "What are your weaknesses?" So I go through some weaknesses, and he says, "That's interesting." He goes, "My weakness is I tend to focus on too many things at one time." And I said to him, "That's called unfocused."
Oh, that's great.
I got the offer too. I think he was appreciative of, but it's true. Like that shiny object thing is kind of a, emblematic of being unfocused in a sense, right? So,
yeah. Well, what a fun interview. I just looked at my clock. I got 2 minutes. Hey, give everybody a chance to learn more about Extra Duty Solutions. And if they want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Yeah, the easiest way is just on our website. And once you're at the website, you can, email, you can call, you can do whatever. And there's a bunch of information there. And our website is extradutysolutions.com.
Well, I greatly admire what you've done in 3 years. Sounds like you had a wonderful company. Thanks so much for sharing your story, Rich.
Thank you for having me on.
Hey, folks, that wraps up this very special interview with Rich Milliman from Extra Duty Solutions. First of all, what a great service to keep our law enforcement. Sometimes they need to earn some extra money because honestly, God, they don't get paid enough for what they do. And thank God they're out there. And until this time next week, I'll do another fantastic interview for you. I'm Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach. You take good care.
Now it's time to go implement what you've learned. Great ideas are nice, but results only happen through action and implementation. So stay focused. Kick all distractions to the curb.
Sleep a little less if you have to.
And create your dream business now so you too can live your dream lifestyle. To learn about building your dream business, join Jim's free Dream Business Facebook community at dreambizgroup.com. That's dreambizgroup.com. See you next week for more Dream Business Radio.